Hi there, I'm Nadine. Ever had your own father hand your life's work to someone who barely knew what it meant to earn it? Mine did. He gave everything I built to my sister, the one who couldn't even code a login screen. So I crushed his company, then bought the family name right out from under him. But what broke me wasn't just betrayal. It was how long they planned it. Would your own family do that to you? What would you have done in my shoes? Tell me, what time are you watching this? And where are you tuning in from? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to see who's listening tonight. The Redgrave family home looked like something out of a Southern Heritage magazine. Columns tall enough to make you feel like a trespasser, windows glowing like polished pearls against the dusky Charleston sky. I arrived 10 minutes early, stupidly hopeful, wearing the navy sheath dress Dad once said made me look capable. That word stuck with me. Sharp, sterile, like a compliment scraped clean of affection. Lorna greeted me at the door. Her voice was warm, but her eyes were calculating. "Nadine, sweetheart, you made it. Your father will be so pleased." The dining room was laid out like a coronation, crystal, silver. Celeste seated beside Dad, hair curled into obedient golden waves, laughing with a glass of wine in hand. Her presence was always staged, like she was waiting for applause. Dad didn't stand when I entered. He gestured to the chair opposite him. "Glad you could make time, honey." I should have seen it coming. But hope has a way of dressing up betrayal until it's too late to turn back. We were halfway through the filet mignon when the knife finally slid in. "I wanted you all here tonight," Dad said, clinking his glass lightly, "to officially announce that Celeste will be taking over Redgrave Systems' future initiatives. She'll be transitioning into executive leadership." I blinked. Celeste stopped sipping long enough to flash a grin. "We're building something fresh," she added. "More modern, more intuitive." I looked from her to him. "You're serious?" Dad nodded, like I'd asked him if it was going to rain. "What about the AI division?" I asked, voice steady. "The logistics algorithm I spent 6 years perfecting? The federal contract we just—" "You'll still be involved," he interrupted, waving his fork. "Just not leading. You're brilliant, honey, but you're not exactly leadership material." The room didn't go silent. It screamed, in my head. I stared at the centerpiece, a floral monstrosity, probably arranged to distract from the rot. I didn't speak again until dessert. He made me wait that long for the final insult. He slid a crisp $100 bill across the table like he was tipping a valet. "For your efforts." Celeste giggled. "Dad, stop," she cooed, pretending to scold while soaking it in. Lorna looked like she wanted to sink into her chair, but she didn't say a word. I placed my napkin gently on the table. My hands were steady, but only because I dug my fingernails into my palm beneath it. "Thank you," I said, lips curled in a smile that tasted like blood. "For the clarity." He shrugged. "It's not personal, Nadine." Of course it wasn't. It never was. They didn't know I hadn't slept in 3 nights finalizing the compliance matrix, or how many holidays I worked through while Celeste was off skiing, brunching, existing in some Instagrammable fog. To them, I was just a component, obsolete the moment I started asking questions instead of just writing code. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I stood. Outside, the rain had started, thin and deliberate, tapping the hood of my car like a ticking clock. I didn't have a plan. I didn't even have a destination. But I knew one thing. They'd made their move. Now it was my turn. He gave her my name. I'll take everything else. Monday morning smelled like varnished ambition and burnt espresso. The kind of day that promised redemption, or maybe just routine. I parked where I always did, took the elevator alone, and kept my chin high despite the acidic burn of the weekend still stuck in my throat. My heels clicked down the marble hallway of Redgrave Systems HQ. Every inch of the place whispered legacy, carved out by decades of effort, mostly mine. I was early, too early, like I used to be when I still thought being early mattered. Today, I came in not to prove something. I came in to reclaim something. That hope shattered before I even reached the lobby doors. Projected 5 stories high across the glass-paneled front of the building was Celeste's face, soft lit and perfect, with the words, Vision, Leadership, Redgrave. I stopped mid-step. For a second, I wasn't sure if I'd walked into the wrong building. Then nausea curled up inside me like something feral. Her photo replaced Dad's from last quarter. My stomach sank. Inside, it was worse. The walls were dressed in banners celebrating Celeste's pioneering direction. Her quotes were painted in cursive above the reception desk. When you know what people need before they do, that's innovation. I nearly choked. Someone had left a stack of glossy company newsletters near the elevators. I picked one up. There she was again, posing like a tech goddess with a group of interns. Page 4 had a blip about support staff behind the scenes. My name was printed beneath a caption, Nadine Redgrave, Back-End Systems Technician. Technician. That was a demotion even the janitors would find insulting. I pressed the elevator button 3 times. Hard. When the doors opened, I avoided eye contact with the others inside. I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled. The kind of smile you wear at funerals. Strained, mechanical, detached. I scanned my badge at the 9th floor entrance. Red light. I tried again. Still red. A security guard I vaguely recognized walked up, clipboard in hand, sheepish. Hey, Ms. Redgrave, you've been reassigned. They, didn't tell you? No, I said too quietly. He cleared his throat. You're down in archive ops now. I can escort you. Of course he could. The annex smelled like printer toner and forgotten purpose. Fluorescent lights hummed like they knew they were being punished, too. My new desk was a metal slab shoved between a dusty copier and 3 stacks of obsolete user manuals. No windows, no nameplate. Just a blank screen, a sticky keyboard, and a chair that tilted sideways if you leaned too far left. It creaked when I sat down. I tried to log in. Access denied. I tried my secondary ID. Nothing. I opened the company server. My folders were gone. Gone. Even the files I authored had been scrubbed of attribution. My email history was wiped. No mention of the work I led. No record of the systems I designed. I was a ghost in the machine. Someone had gone through great effort to not just push me aside, but delete me. I stared at the blank screen, the reflection of fluorescent hell flickering in its black surface. No sound but the hum of artificial air. They didn't just demote me, they erased me. And yet, as I sat there in that dim, suffocating room, something inside me clicked into place. A part of me that had stayed quiet too long started to sharpen. They want me forgotten, I whispered, just loud enough for the printer beside me to hear. I slid my hands under the desk, curling them into fists so tight my knuckles cracked. But I'm not that easy to erase. The car had long gone cold, but I was still sitting in it, hands clenched on the wheel, staring at the lobby doors of Redgrave Systems like they might answer for everything. Rain ticked gently against the windshield, polite, insistent. I couldn't bring myself to turn the key. That morning had been a blow, yes. But maybe, just maybe, someone inside would offer me a shred of clarity, an apology, a conversation, some damn humanity. I stepped into the building. No one looked up, not the receptionist I'd known for years, not the junior engineers I'd mentored. One even turned his back when I entered the elevator, as if my presence was suddenly embarrassing, as if I were a stain. I walked the corridors slowly, searching for a face, a glance, something to indicate I wasn't losing my mind. But it was like walking through an aquarium. Everyone visible, no one reachable. In the break room, 2 HR reps chatted near the vending machine. I stood behind the doorway, out of sight. She doesn't even know it's already done, one of them said, her voice low but smug. Poor thing thinks she's still got cards to play. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Something inside me slid from confusion to certainty. This was a setup, and I had been the only fool at the table who didn't know we were playing poker. I found Mark, my old team lead, in the hallway. "Mark," I called. "Do you have a minute?" He glanced over, his face stiffening like I'd caught him doing something indecent. "I just want to know what's happening," I said. "I'm not here to cause a scene." He opened his mouth, then shut it. His hands twitched at his sides. I can't talk to you," he muttered, then walked off. Back at my desk, the dusty cubicle in archive exile, a yellow sticky note had appeared on my chair. The handwriting was sharp, slanted. "This plan's been in place for months. You were the last to know." I stared at the words until they blurred. 6 months ago, at the board retreat in Asheville, Celeste had hovered unusually close, complimented my ideas, asked about my mental health. Dad had stayed quiet, distant. At the time, I chalked it up to stress, but now it played back like a staged scene, every line rehearsed. I hadn't seen the signs. They'd written the script behind my back. The next morning, I woke up to a buzzing phone and a nightmare that didn't stop with daylight. My name was trending, LinkedIn, Reddit. Someone had spliced together an audio of me speaking at a panel last year, only this version was edited, frayed, spun into a paranoid rant. On a wellness podcast, Lorna sat in soft lighting, her voice low and patient. "We need to talk about burnout in women," she said, her hand on her heart, "especially those who refuse to let others help them. My stepdaughter, brilliant, yes, but I've seen how hard she pushed herself. It's heartbreaking." The host murmured, "And did she ever seek help?" "Not in the ways that count," Lorna replied. A former coworker posted, "Some people aren't cut out for leadership. That's okay. Mental resilience isn't for everyone." And Celeste, of course, posted a filtered photo from the executive floor, captioned, "We rise not when we're perfect, but when we don't fall apart." The comments were fire. "So classy. This is why you lead. Your sister should be proud of you." I wasn't proud. I was shaking. I slammed my laptop shut. I screamed into a pillow. I cursed every name I could remember. But when the tears stopped, the silence stayed. And in that silence, something hardened. I pulled the sticky note from my drawer again, then reached for a dusty black hard drive, my personal archive. Hidden folders, names, files, code ownership logs, screenshots, board meeting summaries. I hadn't known why I saved it all. Now I did. They wanted me gone. Erased. Buried under false concern and well-crafted PR. But they'd forgotten one thing. I built this company. My finger hovered over my phone screen, then tapped a name. She picked up on the second ring. "Nadine?" the voice said, cautious. I smiled. For the first time in days, I meant it. "I think it's time we talk." The email came just after sunrise. Short, cold, final. "Due to internal review and shifting reputational priorities, Levinson Ventures will no longer be proceeding with the Redgrave partnership. We wish you well." I stared at the screen, mouth dry. It had been a 7-figure contract, months in negotiation. I dialed the number I had memorized by heart. His assistant picked up. Polished voice. "I'm sorry, Ms. Redgrave. Mr. Levinson won't be taking calls regarding this matter. But he was the one who—" My voice cracked. "The decision is final. Thank you for your understanding." Click. I pulled up the latest tech panel on my second screen. Levinson's face filled the frame, silver-haired and smug as ever. "We're looking for stability and leadership," he said smoothly, "especially when past performance becomes complicated." The moderator nodded as if that meant something. I knew what it meant. It meant me. I stood, the office spinning faintly, and crossed the room to the bar cart, still untouched since before the demotion dinner. I poured whiskey I didn't taste. I met with Ian, my attorney, that afternoon. He looked nervous. He rarely did. "There was a media brief," he said, pushing a printed page toward me. "Not legally defamatory, but suggestive. Mentions you're being evaluated for psychological strain after prolonged executive burnout." My jaw tightened. Evaluated by whom? It doesn't say. That's the trick. There's no accusation, just enough smoke. A memory flared. Lorna, months ago, her voice soft, condescending. "You know, sweetie, there's no shame in asking for help." especially when you carry so much pressure. It would be tragic if something snapped. It hadn't been concern. It had been a warning. I took the page and folded it in half, then again, until it fit in the pocket of my coat like a blade. That night, I couldn't sleep. I logged into Redgrave's public data dashboards. I needed distraction, but patterns always soothed me. Except the patterns were off. Celeste had boasted a 40% user growth last quarter, but when I overlaid the back-end traffic logs, still mirrored from my prior access, the numbers didn't match, not even close. I recalculated, ran the data again. Still wrong. An hour later, a message pinged into my personal inbox. No name, just a single image attachment and one sentence. Check the delta between Q3 and Q4 access logs. I opened the image. It was a screenshot of an admin panel, showing manual alterations to key performance indicators. The changes were time-stamped. They all aligned with the dates of Celeste's press conferences. Fraud, documented. I exhaled slowly, heart pounding not from fear, but focus. They weren't just liars. They were sloppy liars, and I had proof. The walls of the house I helped build were rotten, and they were leaning on the illusion that I'd stay quiet, that I'd crawl away, that they could bury me under words like fragile and unstable. I uploaded the data to my encrypted drive, backed up twice, then opened my leather-bound journal and wrote one line. Now it's not just personal, it's professional. The laptop screen glowed in the dark as the Redgrave logo pulsed on a fake financial dashboard. Outside, the city kept humming, unaware that a legacy was about to be torn apart. Talia slid the flash drive across the table without a word. We sat in the back corner of a rundown cafe off King Street, the kind of place where no one paid attention to anyone else. I picked it up, palmed it like contraband. "You're sure this is clean?" She sipped her tea, eyes scanning the room. Air-gapped system, no metadata, no trace. They don't know I kept it. I nodded. The screen on my phone blinked once, an encrypted backup of Redgrave's internal logs, irrefutable proof Celeste had manipulated performance data. "They scrubbed the originals?" I asked. "They started yesterday," she said quietly. "That's why I moved early." I leaned back. My heart wasn't racing. It was pacing, measured, ready. "Good. Then we're right on time." My plan wasn't impulsive. It had been crystallizing in silence. I would confront my father and give him a choice, step aside and spare his legacy, or face the avalanche he set in motion. Either way, the truth would out. I returned to my apartment that night, opened the VPN to Redgrave's internal server, and typed in my old credentials. Access denied. I tried a backdoor route I'd built years ago, still locked out. I called Ben from IT. He picked up on the second ring but spoke like someone on a wiretap. "Nadine," he said, voice clipped. "It's gone. Everything's been wiped, not archived, not moved, purged, 24 hours ago." "They deleted the server logs?" "All of them. It's like you never existed." My fingers curled into a fist around the phone. "Thanks, Ben. You didn't tell me this. You didn't call." I didn't sleep. I stared at the monitor, watching the blinking cursor, watching the ghost of my name being overwritten byte by byte. I wasn't just being pushed out. I was being erased. The next morning, a courier arrived at my door with a manila envelope. My name printed neatly in the top left corner, the Redgrave seal pressed in wax across the flap. I already knew what it was before I opened it. Summons. Redgrave Systems was suing me. The headline accusation? Misappropriation of proprietary code. The code I had written, the architecture I had designed from scratch, the system I had slept beside more than any man. I met with Ian, my lawyer, in his office that afternoon. He looked more tired than usual. "They're invoking Clause 14.2, he said, placing the old contract between us. "Anything created under company time or infrastructure belongs to Redgrave." Full stop. I stared at the words. They blurred. "That clause wasn't in the original draft," I muttered. Number it was added after that second revision, right after the Vesper Labs merger. The last piece clicked into place. Silas had planned this from the start. Even then, he'd drawn the outline of a cage and waited until I walked into it. They weren't content to humiliate me. They wanted to own me, my ideas, my name, my legacy. I walked out of Ian's office and stood on the street. The wind off the harbor was cold. I didn't flinch. That night, I wrote the press release. It was surgical. No emotion, no theatrics, just precision. A quiet storm coded in corporate dialect, implying mismanagement, insinuating fraud, built on the very logs they'd tried to destroy. Before hitting send, I stared at the screen and whispered, "They made me ruthless." The screen lit up with a new notification. Case filed. Redgrave versus Nadine Dalton. Miles didn't look up when he entered the room, just tossed a printed contract on the table between us. "There's your smoking gun." I scanned the signature line. Silas had forgotten to finalize the document. His initials missing, the witness field blank, the date line never filled. That clause, the one he'd used to accuse me of stealing my own code, was legally worthless. I stared at the page, pulse steady. "Are you sure?" Miles nodded. "It won't hold." He overreached. The air shifted. I could feel it. Something tectonic snapping into place inside me. I wasn't cornered anymore. I was coiled. I returned to my apartment and pulled out the binder I hadn't opened in years. Every idea I had seeded for Redgrave. Architecture drafts, debug logs, conference emails with timestamps that put me in the driver's seat before Celeste ever knew how to compile a script. I sat down and recorded a full legal memo, clear, clinical, devastating. Then I uploaded the file to a legal forum under the pseudonym Veritas and watched it start to crawl. By midnight, it had traction. By morning, legal Twitter was chewing it alive. I didn't say a word, let the fire grow quiet and hot. Then came the insult that made it personal again. Celeste held a press conference at Redgrave HQ, standing before a glass wall etched with Redgrave's logo. "This new logistics system," she beamed, "is the future of AI-driven operations." I watched from a cafe in Mount Pleasant. Her smile glowed on the muted TV screen. Behind her, a display ran my code, slightly altered, branded in their font, but unmistakably mine. My throat burned. I stood so fast my chair screeched. She didn't just steal my legacy, she dressed it in glitter and called it hers. I stormed into Vesper Systems that afternoon. "Full audit," I told Marcus, my CTO. "I want every single module compared, line by line. If they copied one keystroke, I want it flagged." He blinked at my tone, then nodded. "On it." For hours, my team worked in silence. The files we pulled showed eerie precision, timing, logic trees, even documentation phrasing. All mine, reskinned, but not reimagined. They weren't visionaries, they were parasites. That evening, I set the stage. A private investor demo, just me and one of Redgrave's largest stakeholders. I didn't talk much. I let the tech speak for itself. My system was faster, cleaner, real. When it finished, I turned to him and said one thing. "She stole a mirror. I built the light." He didn't speak. His expression told me everything. I walked out into the cool dusk air. No need for fireworks. This wasn't a battle anymore. It was the start of a war. It started with a whisper, then the internet screamed. At 6:08 a.m., my phone buzzed non-stop. Dozens of alerts, screenshots, headlines, a leak, a massive dump of internal Redgrave logs posted by an anonymous hacker under the alias Ruin Protocol. Line after line of broken logic and proof that Celeste's shiny new AI system had been launched with untested, unstable code. Someone had opened the closet, and every skeleton tumbled out. Within hours, Redgrave was trending, for all the wrong reasons. Words like fraud, reckless, and ethical breach lit up every platform. Major outlets ran segments dissecting the flaw. One anchor put it bluntly: they launched a bomb wrapped in ribbon. Celeste vanished from all socials by noon. I didn't cheer. I didn't text Miles. I didn't post a single word. I watched in silence, sipping coffee that had gone cold. Watching a house burn you once helped build doesn't bring joy. It brings gravity. By the next day, the fallout went global. Analysts confirmed the logs proved not just incompetence, but malice. They'd knowingly pushed unverified code to clients, risking billions. Former engineers began speaking to press outlets anonymously. One article titled, "Her the Influencer CEO Who Fooled the World." Meanwhile, my team at Vesper was already in gear. Marcus compiled a side-by-side technical dossier comparing Redgrave's code with ours. No one could deny the theft now, and the moment to strike was drawing near. But then, they showed up. I was reviewing the investor roadmap when the door to my office opened. My assistant, wide-eyed, whispered, "They're here." Silas and Celeste stood just outside. They weren't in suits. They weren't even coordinated. Silas wore a windbreaker, like he'd just come back from a walk that took years off his life. Celeste looked brittle, her eyes sunken and mascara faded. No cameras, no PR handler, just them, and their shame. I stood. "Let them in," he spoke first. "Nadine, this has gone far enough." I waited. "We need a solution, a merger, shared control," he offered, like we were still talking business and not blood. Celeste didn't meet my gaze. She stared at the floor like a child waiting out a storm. He added, softer this time, "You know the brand can't survive this, but you can. We can." I thought of every night I'd slept on server room floors, every milestone they'd claimed, every grin they flashed as they buried me alive. I nodded once, slowly. Then I walked behind my desk, opened the bottom drawer, and retrieved a framed photo, one from years ago, before the betrayal, before the rewrites. Me, in a lab coat, my code on the whiteboard behind me. I placed it face up between us. "You once told me I wasn't leadership material," I said evenly, "and then you gave my life's work away." He opened his mouth. I cut him off. "You taught me one thing well, how to bury a name." They left without another word, not even a glance back. Outside, the sun had started to dip behind the buildings. The light caught the glass of our office tower and turned it gold. I turned to my assistant. "Prepare the board for acquisition protocol." The letter arrived folded inside a cream-colored envelope, the kind you'd expect a wedding invitation to come in. No name on the front, just my address in Celeste's perfect, performative handwriting. She asked to meet me at St. Joseph's Hospital Cafe. "One last conversation," she wrote, "before the board vote. For Mom, that last line wasn't a plea. It was bait." I arrived 15 minutes early. She was already seated, hunched over a paper cup like a child clutching a bedtime story. Her makeup was minimal, her voice softer than I remembered. For a moment, I almost believed the performance. "She's dying, Nadine," Celeste said, eyes glassy. "You know she always hated conflict. Please, don't do this. Don't let this be how the Redgrave name ends." I let the words fall around me like drizzle on a raincoat. I didn't absorb them. I just let them pass. She was trying to guilt me using a woman who never once defended me, a woman who sat quiet while I was erased. Celeste reached for my hand. I didn't pull away, but I didn't give in either. "I know we made mistakes," she whispered. "If I go on air, say you were right, say the software was yours. Would you consider preserving the name? We could rebrand it together, as sisters." "You're not sorry," I said flatly. "You're afraid." She flinched. "I buried myself so many times trying to be who you all wanted. But this time, the burial's not mine." I stood up, my chair sliding quietly across the tile. "Say goodbye, Celeste, and say it loud, because the next time the world hears the Redgrave name, it'll be as a footnote." That afternoon, I walked into the Vesper boardroom and signed the documents that had taken decades to prepare, on my soul's behalf, if not my company's. The acquisition was swift, clinical. Redgrave Systems became a line item. The rebranding directive ensured that every digital footprint, every logo, every product tag bearing the Redgrave name would vanish within 72 hours. My legal team asked if I wanted to host a press conference. I shook my head. Let silence echo louder than applause. I stood by the window of the executive suite as the announcement went live. Stock tickers buzzed, headlines refreshed. The domain redgravesystems.com redirected instantly to Vesper's homepage. My assistant entered quietly, tablet in hand. "It's done," she said. I nodded once. "What now?" I turned to my desk, opened the bottom drawer, and pulled out an old photo of my mother. She wasn't smiling in it, just staring, like she always had, with that unreadable look that made me work twice as hard for half her warmth. We build what should have been built. And this time, I would make sure no one rewrote my story. The world outside was burning with headlines, but my new office at Vesper was silent. No buzz from my phone, no team tapping at the door, just me, a mug of bitter coffee, and the hum of the HVAC system whispering through the ceiling. Victory, it turns out, is a quieter room than I expected. I didn't look at the news. I didn't need to. The Redgrave name was gone from the market, and that was enough. I wasn't chasing applause. I'd spent too many years mistaking validation for peace. At 9:12 a.m., a courier arrived. Gray cap, pressed uniform, no small talk. He handed me a small envelope with no return address. The handwriting made my stomach lurch. It was hers. The loops were unmistakable. The way she curved her D like a half moon. My mother's hand. She'd written this before her death, years ago maybe, and someone had saved it. Someone who knew I'd need it now. I opened it slowly, careful not to tear the edges. My hands trembled. Nadine, I've watched you fight for everything you were denied. I've watched you burn for the things you believed you earned. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to shield you from the storm I helped create. But if you keep burning, you'll become the fire that scorched you. You will never find peace through vengeance. Find what makes you alive again. Some names deserve to be buried. Don't become him. I stopped breathing for a moment. Not from pain, from recognition. 16 years ago, she had cradled me on the porch after I'd been bullied for building a robot when the other girls were trying lip gloss. She said, "They'll always be afraid of what they don't understand. Don't spend your life trying to be understood. Build what they can't deny." I used to think she meant innovation, but maybe she meant identity. I folded the letter and stared out the window, watching light creep across the glass towers. By noon, I was back at the old Redgrave building, empty now. The silence pressed in like dust in an attic. The plaque on the wall still bore the name. I touched it once, cold, unforgiving. I saw myself reflected in the brass, the same eyes, harder now, older, but not broken. Never again. Back at Vesper, I called Miles and Talia. "We're launching the mentorship fund next week," I said. "Real women, real equity, no family name needed." They agreed. No questions. Just a quiet yes. As I slid my mother's letter into the bottom drawer of my desk, I felt something shift inside me. Not a crack, not a collapse, just space. Space for something new to begin. My phone buzzed. "Celeste. I'm sorry. Can we talk?" I looked at the screen. I didn't reply. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I finally didn't need to. In the end, this wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming who I am. I spent years chasing justice, thinking it would fill the silence left behind by betrayal. But what I found is that peace doesn't come from proving others wrong. It comes from choosing to build something better even when no one's watching. If you've ever been dismissed, underestimated, or silenced, I want you to know, you are not the sum of what they took from you. You are what you choose to become after. So tell me, have you ever walked away from something that no longer defined you? What did you build in its place? If this story spoke to your heart, leave a comment with the number 1, or tell me where you're watching from. And if it didn't, I still want to hear from you. What would you have done differently? If you're still here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss what's coming next. Your story matters too.